Hey everybody, we are live with CALLOUS Invitational 6 play-ins action. This match very delayed, almost 3 hours after they had originally scheduled, which is the fault of Odin, but Leo generously kept it cool and patient and was willing to wait for him and did not force the action, and we do finally get a game, which I'm glad because I really didn't want to have to disqualify a player from play-ins or find a substitute or any of that crap. It's much better if they just play as intended. So here we are. It is CyberOdin, I Love You Jesus, bottom side, and then Leo on the top side. This is a rematch from earlier in the year where they played in seasonal, where Leo won handily. And predictions wise, I believe you guys think that Leo's going to win again. Let me just check that real quick. But this is a live narration, so you're going to see them play as quickly or as slowly as it goes, you know? Doesn't work like that in the replay. You don't get to see the dramatic pauses and the tension. But here in a live match, you're going to see it as it happens, just as I am. Authentic reactions and all that good stuff. Here's a BP. Looks like a mixed or physical offense from Leo versus fairly standard TSS for Odin. Boom there trades with Pert, which is almost always good for meta, especially if he is in fact a physical offense team that wants things like Swampert, a physical wall, to not be there. But checking in on the predictions here, you guys by almost a 2-to-1 ratio believe that Leo is going to defeat CyberOdin here. I believe in the live prediction video I had said Odin at the time. I also said that I'm not super confident in that prediction, but I'm not going to be wishy-washy and say, oh, it's probably a 50-50 or whatever. You can't say that. That's cheap. You got to pick one. So I'm going to stick with what I said and say that Odin gets it. Wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong, but Odin. In the meantime, both of them figuring out what they want to switch out here after we're already on turn 2 and that's it. And we are pausing here. And they both opt for, well, one of them goes back to the lead and then the other goes to something that it had shown before. They both go to things they've shown, but very different choices. It's a T-Tar and a Swampert. Swampert you might note is not getting lefties. I'm sure Odin noticed that. And now we know why. I mean, not that there's really ever anything other than it being Endeavor Pert when it doesn't have lefties, but as if we didn't know, there's the sub in the Endeavor. Takes a nice bite out of Celebi, but has to be careful here. It's a bulky Celebi of sorts because it is slower than Swampert. If the Celebi had any speed investment at all, even up to like 244, it would be faster than Pert. And out of the way we go to Mence on what he thinks is going to be a recover turn. That is correct. So some kind of TSS or like balanced sand squad for Odin versus a pretty standard run-of-the-mill, seemingly physical offense for Leo. Leo's team looks like it should have a Magneton in the back. Not clear whether or not Odin has Skarmory. He is a very spikes-heavy player, but it's not necessarily all Skarm. He does have a lot of Cloisters, or at least did at one point. Odin is not a big 4 guy, is my understanding, but he is a very spikes-heavy player. And again, both of them taking the time here, a little bit of a pause. The Mence we saw through the sand does have lefties, so we can rule out the possibility of it being a choice bander. Could be looking at a DD Mence, a Wish Mence, a mixed Mence. Almost any Mence is threatening to Celebi here. I guess like a defensive Wish Mence wouldn't be, but... And it could be that, but you certainly can't rely on it if you're Odin. You've got to respect that this Mence can really mess your day up and get out of the way. But they're both thinking about it. It isn't just Odin, it's also Leo. He might be contemplating a double switch here. Likewise, if it is a mixed Mence, he might be figuring out what attack to go with here. Certainly not HP Grass, right? Because the best target, Swampert, is down. Might be thinking about whether he wants to Dragon Claw versus Brick Break here. Leo putting a lot of thought into this turn. Over a minute and still counting very early in this battle. A slow pace for this one, which is quite the opposite of some of the matches that we saw, like Siglet versus Pack, for example, was just a total clicker fest. And I don't mean that in a bad way, just everyone plays at their own pace. But this one a bit more deliberate. So it does certainly seem to be a mixed men's, though occasionally Wishman's carries Dragon Claw. And he goes to Starmie, but then doubles right back to T-Tar to get it in on the Lax, which is a matchup that he seems happy with. So that was a good play for Odin. I like the double switch there. Good way to get a little bit of tempo back. Leo had been dictating the tempo, but Odin knows how to take that back over. And indeed, it's now Odin calling the shots. Leo is going to have to react to this T-Tar here. The obvious switch is Swampert. Probably just has the 2 rock resist. It's unlikely that it is a third, though like I said, he does possibly have a Magneton on the back, but that only kind of sort of counts. That's like half a rock resist if you must count it. It's not something that wants to be switching into Tyranitar by any means. And as I say that, there is in fact a third full-fledged rock resist, so very well padded against T-Tar and Arrow on this team. He's got Meta and Pert and Claydol. To be fair, it was an offensive Pert of the Endeavor variety, so it's not a standard bulky water, but it does still resist rock, and it handles Arrow and T-Tar in a pinch. So Doll takes the rock slide, no problem, 22%. Like every Doll ever, it's going to have Earthquake somewhere and the ability to threaten the tower more than 0, though the tower, of course, could have things like HP Bug. Crunch or Pursuit are possible on a Rock Slide set, but they're way less likely. Only thing we've seen is Rock Slide. It could also have something weird like Toxic or whatever. But probably the move that Leo would most be worried about here is HP Bug, which would hurt, but it wouldn't be blowout devastating. Just be a decent chunk. Claydol should have the advantage here, even if the T-Tar is faster, which is not a given. A lot of people like a lot of speed, and I mean a lot of speed sometimes, like 270 or just outrageous numbers on their Claydol, so it totally could be faster here. But neither one is entirely comfortable, so they both get out of the way. We end up with Celebi on Lax here. I'm going to assume, just based on the structure of the team, with the Meta and the Doll that I would assume both have Boom, I'm going to assume that the Lax also has Boom. So I think we are looking at least 3 Boomers here. And then you go down to, well, we know it's not a DD Man, so you think there's a setup Mon somewhere. So we booming down to like a DD Tar or a Coon, for example. A Crow Coon would be a wonderful last poke. Leech Seed misses there, and that puts Celebi in a bit of an awkward spot. Shadow Ball chunks him for a bit better than a third, 36%. The obvious play now is for Odin to recover, so if Leo thinks it's a good trade, the Lax and the Celebi, this would be basically a guaranteed time that he could click self-destruct and make that trade happen. Now granted, Leo may not think that's a good trade. He may not be that worried about the Celebi. He could also just like body slam it or go to the Mence here. It is the recover, so had he blown up, it would have worked, like I said, but he goes for Curse instead. It's another Leech Seed miss, so that's 85% accuracy, missing twice. Crappy there for CyberOdin. Pretty unlucky. And now the Shadow Balls are starting to add up. They're doing more damage than he's gaining back with the recover. And he's vulnerable to a crit here. He's not going to be able to do this much longer. I don't know where he's going with this, but it's not going to work. Leo switches it up to Body Slam rather than Shadow Ball, so Celebi net gains on the turn barely, but eventually he's going to get crit, he's going to get paralyzed, whatever it is. I don't know where he's going with this, but it looks like a whole lot of nowhere, and I don't get why Odin hasn't switched to Tyranitar, but he's going to be 0 for 3 on Leech Seed accuracy before the Celebi dies there. Certainly an unlucky sequence for Odin, but again, bigger picture, I question why he didn't go to the Tyranitar. I don't understand why he just let the Celebi die there. It felt like he didn't have to. But now, Leo is very much in the driver's seat. Certainly with the aid of some luck, but as a whole, Leo is in a good place. Dugtrio is going to die. Swampert is still going to be behind a sub. Terrible there that the Swampert outsped the Dugtrio. It must have been an adamant Dugtrio. And now this is going to die too with the sand. This is a one-sided game 1. That's also going to die with the sand. It gets the pert, but I mean, at what cost? It is only the Tyranitar still alive against the 4 Mons, one of which is unrevealed. EQ, not Dragon Dance, and that's going to wrap it up. The faster doll is going to EQ one more time. That's going to be that. This one not particularly close. Certainly some luck. Like I said, triple Leech Seed miss is not particularly likely mathematically, so that was crappy. But this one is not overly close. It is going to be Leo taking it down pretty handily as we wait for game 2. And then also at the same time, I'm not going to check on it because I want to focus on this tour and I respect this tour, but also going on right now is the grand final set 1 of the GSC Invitational between Alice and Starmaster, which is a best of 5. And then, as with all grand finals that are double limb tours or whatever, if Starmaster wins that set, they're going to go to another best of 5 set. But with GSC, man, it could take a long time. Imagine if in the initial set, the initial best of 5, imagine it goes all 5 games and 2 of them go like 300 plus turns or whatever. Playing 10 GSC games, in theory, it could be as few as 3 games or as many as 10, so there's a lot of variance, but playing that many GSC games could take hours, potentially. We'll see. There we go, not too much of a delay in between games. Here is the second game between Leo and Odin. Let me just go ahead and switch them up for continuity. It'll still be Odin as I Love You Jesus on the bottom against Leo on the top. And we have a T-Tar and a Mence this time, both of which threaten each other. T-Tar could have Rock Slide. It could have things like Ice Beam. Could even have some weird stuff like T-Wave. Whereas the Mence could have Brick Break or even Choice Band Brick Break. And it very well could have Earthquake or Toxic as well. So they both threaten each other. The standard play here is for both of them to get out of the way. And that is what they go for. Neither one is able to muster up the courage to stay in, and I think that's totally fine. Leo's going to get himself immediately caught, however. It's a BP to a mag, and he catches a crit. Not clear if the crit mattered or not. Not clear if he was holding Magnet or whatever, but I don't think you can get too upset about that, given how unlucky Odin got with the 3 Leech Seed misses in the first game. So we'll just call that a little bit of luck evening out. But yeah, great start, ideal start, exactly the way that you would draw it up if you're Odin. That works out really, really good. He gets the Celebi in against the Bulky Water, and he knows that the T-Tar is often going to prompt Bulky Water, so this is a very well planned out opening. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the way he would have wanted it to go. It just makes sense. A great sequence for Odin, very well planned. This exact sequence of events is something that's going to happen pretty often. T-Tar prompts water, Celebi comes in on water, Celebi scares off the water, especially Swampert, BP's out, Skarm is gone. Like I said, whether the crit matters or not is TBD. If it's holding a Magnet, he might have gotten them without a crit, but obviously with the crit, Skarm has 0 chance to survive. So a much, much better start to this game for CyberOdin, looking to send us to a Game 3 and not be eliminated in the opening round of the play-ins here in CALLOUS Invitational 6. As we pause, I want to remind you guys to join the Discord server if you haven't done so already, and to consider donating to the tournament. We already have $1,400-ish, which is fantastic pre-tour, and I really, really appreciate all you guys who have generously contributed your hard-earned money to make this tournament a reality. So Leo is opting for his Mence again, which does not appear to be gaining lefties. See if Odin picks up on that. Some Magneton, probably not the majority anymore, but some Magneton do carry Protect, which he could go for here to scout the Choice Band move. He could also just stay in and call his bluff and say, you know, if you do anything other than Earthquake, I'm going to get you with T-Wave or what have you. Because Earthquake is such an exploitable move, you could easily switch to Celebi or something that's outright immune to Earthquake here and just punish the Mence by not only blanking its attack but making it take more sand damage. Now granted, CB Mence is usually paired with a Wish user in the back, so there could easily be a Bliss, it could be a Skarm Bliss team for Leo, or there could be a Jirachi or whatever. Probably a Wish user in the back. And he stays in and eats a Brick Break. Interesting. So Celebi or a Flying Poke like Zapdos or his own Mence or whatever would have gotten the job done there. But I think it's fine. He played it safe. He didn't want to risk something else. Imagine going to Celebi and then Leo just clicks HP Flying, for example. I get why Odin didn't pull the trigger there. And the Magneton already did its job, taking out the Skarm. So Odin had a fantastic lead, and now it's just back to a normal game. But I still think that Odin is probably ahead. Mag trading for Skarm, especially when it got 0 spikes down, has got to be a good thing. Now Leo's getting a little bit of tempo back. He gets his Magneton in on Ice Beam, which it takes just fine. 20%, not a big deal. That also doesn't have lefties, as most Magneton don't these days. Probably just holding Magnet, but it could be Endure Salic Berry. Both games, it looks like Leo has come very prepared for Skarmory and for Spikes, and Odin, to his credit, has seemingly avoided bringing those things, which I think is wise. Here, he's going to stay in and risk the 80-20 Hydro Pump. That must be tough for him to do after the way the Leech Seeds kind of screwed him over in the previous game. But he has faith in his Mons, faith in the heart of the cards, clicks that Hydro Pump, and he gets them. So Magneton dies there, and Odin gets back in the lead 5-4, with still unreveals on both sides, 2 for Odin, 1 for Leo. It is in fact a Skarm Bliss team for Leo. Like I said, I strongly suspect, since it's CB Men's, that it's going to be a Wish variant of Blissey, and it's going to be a well-trained Wish variant of Blissey, because it gets an immediate Ice Beam crit to snipe out Celebi that was otherwise about to pass a Swords Dance there. Relevant hacks for Leo, striking again, and Odin finding himself again on the back foot. Leo stayed in there and went for S-Toss, I think, to disrupt what could have been a Focus Punch. But now that he knows that Cheetar seemingly doesn't have Focus Punch, he feels better about his position. He is eating Brick Breaks here, but the Soft Boileds are recovering more than the Brick Breaks are doing. Now, granted, a crit at any time could change that, and that Ice Beam was a good attempt for Odin. He thought perhaps Salamence was going to come in on that turn. It would have been a huge snipe that I would have given him infinite praise for had he managed to actually pull that off. It would have been such a good play, and I still like the play. I still like what he did there. He didn't get it right, but really good to fish for that. Unfortunately, now that he knows that it's there, he's never going to catch the Salamence with that. But still, really like what he tried to do there, and a lot of the time that would work, and it would have been a devastating play. Odin playing well as a whole. He's now going to sneak in the T-Tar against the Swampert on a Protect turn. Unfortunately, doesn't make the right prediction. Brick Break there, even with a crit, is going to be short. And in Torrent range, certainly a Surf is going to kill the Tar. Leo, with a little bit of good play and a little bit of luck, is going to get in the lead again. And he's got Odin with the back against the wall. Odin is going to have to win this game somehow and figure out how to win a game 3, or he's going to be eliminated in the opening round of play-ins, and Leo is going to book himself a date with... I don't have the bracket handy. Let me just check that real quick. Leo is going to be against the winner of Mead and Jimothy Cool, which did already play out, so I'm not going to spoil that, but go ahead and check that out if you've not watched that already. But he does know, or Odin knows, whoever wins this, they will know who they're playing against in the next round. They already know who's waiting for them. Okay, so Meta comes in, Protect is going to fail, and Mash is going to get him. Brings us to a 3-3 game state, and there's an unrevealed for both guys, which is a little bit scary, though I think they both probably can take an educated guess or two as to what the last poke would be for both of them. There's only so many things that make sense on either structure. So we wait. It is Leo taking the time here. Odin doesn't have any choices to make. He just has to wait to see what Leo sends out. He could go to Mence here, but there's a couple of problems. First of all, CB Earthquake does not always kill Metagross. Depending on the spread of Metagross, it could live it 0% of the time, or 100% of the time, or it could be a roll. The other problem is we still don't know the last poke, and every single poke that Odin has shown is spikes vulnerable. So you would think somewhere in there he's got something like a Salamence, which I think is probably his last poke, but something in there that is not spikes vulnerable. Something that outright blanks an Earthquake. He has 3 Earthquake vulnerabilities in the T-Tire, the Magneton, the Metagross. The whole team is weak to spikes. A lot of Doug weak pokes over there. 3 Earthquake weaknesses plus a Celebi that all hate Doug Trio. You would think Odin's last poke is something that flies or levitates. So the issue with Leo going to Mence is not only does Earthquake absolutely kill, even if Odin stays in, but it could also be completely blanked if he goes to something with flying or levitate. He's also wondering if he can go to his last poke here. Depending on what that is, he might be opting for that route. Blissey, I think the last move is Wish. If it were a Thunder Wave Bliss, I think you would go to that here and click Thunder Wave every time. But I think it is Wish. So I believe he's debating between Salamence and the last poke. And like I said, even if you go to Salamence, there's quite a bit of risk involved. Metagross could just tank it and kill you with Mash. You could Earthquake into a Salamence, and then the opposing Mence clicks DD, and you're really in trouble. I think Odin has a good shot to win this game, but it's far from guaranteed. There's still things that could happen, still room to play. Well, that's going to certainly help his case. And now Leo needs to either crit the meta or have the last be something that doesn't blank Earthquake. And indeed, it is something that blanks Earthquake, which it basically always was going to be. And now it's going to be hard for Leo to win. Not impossible, but very difficult. He's going to need freezes. He's going to need crits. Maybe Rock Slide dodges. Maybe Aerodactyl misses Rock Slide against Mence, something along those lines. But Leo is going to have to catch some amount of a break. And I'm seeing GG's. And that is going to be the concession. Odin is going to force us to Game 3. I thought Odin played that game very nicely as a whole. Not a lot of complaints. Good opening sequence for him that really helped. Leo caught up a bit and even took the lead for a little while. But as a whole, I thought that was a clean game for Odin. And he deserved the W there. So a third game will decide it. It will be, and I'll spoil the opponent at the end of the video, but not going to spoil it right now. But it's going to be the winner here in this third and final game between Odin and Leo to face the already determined winner of Mead and Jimothy Cool as we wait. And like I said, the GSC Grand Finals are also going on over there. I think CALLOUS is actually up 2-0 in that. She's been dominant in this tour. She looks good. And yeah, Star Master's going to have to do a lot of winning. 3 in a row and then a whole nother set. Good on Alice for being this damn dominant in the tour. Props to her big time. Will Odin bring spikes in the third game? Leo is well aware of how much of a spike lover Odin is and has picked his teams accordingly. Comes very prepared. Got the doll in this one, might even be mag in the back, but he's got the doll in this one, and then he's got the mag in this one. Not chancing it whatsoever, and probably will do the same in this next game. Can Odin resist temptation? Hasn't brought spikes yet in the set. Will he just default to his usual? That's the one thing I want him to not do here. I want Odin to not just default to his Zapdos, Aggressive Gar, Tar, Spiker, Pert, X squads that he ran for years and years and years. I think he had the right idea here. Avoid spikes, bring something solid, play a tight, proactive game. I think what Odin did in this game was right. Leo is not the world's most creative ADVer. He keeps it pretty solid and standard. I'd be really surprised if Leo opted to roll up in game 3 with like a smear goal lead or like a jinx offense or, you know, some like swords dance, baton pass kind of thing. Not really his style from my understanding. Longer pause on this one. Was only a couple minutes previously, but understandably in this one, they both really want to get it right. Both thinking it over here, wanting to bring the right squads, wanting to not let nerves get them too much. Maybe either one of them is taking a drink or taking a breath. A little walk around real quick, other side of the house. There are no official rules about how long players can take in between games. I mean, at some point, I don't know what the exact line would be, but I mean, certainly if I were sitting here for a half hour or whatever, I'd be like, all right, guys, what are we doing? I would certainly say something, where the F are you? But, there's no official guidelines, so if they want to take a couple minutes, 5 minutes, hell, maybe even 10 minutes, we'll see. Then they can do that. Wonder who we're waiting on. Maybe both. See all these other games starting, but none of them a game that we're waiting for. Though I am watching the GSC on my phone, so I'm entertained, even if you guys are bored. That's what counts, right? Alice seems to be ahead in game 3 as well. Well, that's close, but man, imagine if she sweeps them. Impressive performance, if so. Yeah, Alice is up 3 pokes to 2 in this third game, and she's up 2-0 in the set. And Stardust conceded. I think Callous just swept. Wildly impressive. That was, God, I was talking about how it could take hours and hours. That took about a half hour for all 3. Alice is an animal. Good damn job, girl. I'll be paying her out. I'm holding the money for that tour, and I am quite excited to do that. She super duper deserves it. Not clear who we're waiting on here. Making sure they're both still online. Certainly should be. Leo's here. Is Odin not here? Oh, he's not voiced on this account. Awkward. But he is here. Keeping us in suspense for this game 3. Patiently waiting, patiently waiting. Don't have too much to add about the games that we've already seen. Like I said, I thought that they were relatively straightforward. Neither one was the longest game in the world. I thought both players as a whole have played fine. Yeah, and it's just it is just a matter of getting in the right headspace, loading what you think is the right team, and playing as well as you can. There's a lot of games going on right now. The GSC just played, and then I think Slam is being played right now. I might say something in a moment. I'm not at the point of yelling at them and disqualifying them or something, but Gonna at least check on what's going on here. Use my phone real quick to check on Discord. Well, there's a lot of chatting going on here. Talking about PPL auction, which we're not going to talk about. There is the Slam final going on. There's the GSC that just concluded. What are they doing? I'm going to ping them. Just going to make sure that I'm not any stupider than I already think that I am. They didn't play and I just missed it, right? I would feel like such an idiot. Nope. There's all these games going on, but none of those are the droid we're looking for. Man, I wish I could edit these videos after the fact and just cut this whole middle section out. Can't be the most exciting for you, but it's even worse for me. Wasting my damn time. Alright, here we go. Third and final. Finally they started. It is I Love You Jesus. Again, that's Odin on the bottom and Leo on the top for the third and final game. This is going to decide who will face the winner of Mead and Jim Cool, which I'm going to spoil at the end of the video. So Jirachi and Titar lead. Titar very common lead. Jirachi not so much, but it's not utterly unheard of by any means. It's got to give Leo a little bit of pause. I mean, you could threaten it with like Earthquake or Fire Blast or whatever, but Rachi can have some weird shit. It can have Dynamic Punch or HP Fighting. It can have T-Wave. There's a couple things that Rachi wants to avoid, or that Titar wants to avoid from Rachi, rather. Body Slam certainly could have been one of them. Para could have been annoying there. But it's actually going to be Jirachi who ends up paralyzed because he's looking at a T-Wave Starmie. And I think that Starmie was a good switch. Had it been Dynamic Punch or HP Fighting, you don't care. Had it been T-Wave or Toxic, you don't care. Had it been Body Slam and you get paralyzed, you don't care. I think that was a safe switch and a good play for Leo. Certainly, that's what I would have done in that situation. It's pretty risk averse, depending. I mean, it doesn't really matter what the Rachi has. It would have to like randomly click Thunder there or something for it to go wrong. It's a very safe play as a whole. So Rachi is going to get a Wish Off and eat it for himself, back up to 95%. He did crit the Bliss for a whopping 38%, which is whatever. However, he does get Power Off, 60% chance of doing that with the Body Slams, thanks to Serene Grace. And we might be in for a bit of a grind here. Odin is switching it up back to his usual spiky, cloister, aggressive stuff, which is what I told him not to do, but nobody listens to me. And, okay, that play I like. He's going to immediately trade with Starmie. Now, it would be really cute, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but imagine if Odin now had, like, a Fori or a Skarmory in the back. Hey, nice spinner, dweeb. Here's my real spiker. Don't think that'll be the case, but it would be pretty spiffy. So the question now becomes, does Odin have a spinner? I would hope that Cloyster was not the if it's a spinner at all, was not the spinner that he's relying on. I would hope that he's got like a clay doll or something in the back. Gonna need it. Rachi did get a fire punch burn off on the Skarmory, which totally matters. The question just becomes if he can remove the spikes or not, because it's not nearly as exciting if he gets the burn but can't make the spikes go away. But if he got the burn and he's not worried about the spikes, then Odin's probably in a decent place right now. But Odin hasn't shown anything, really. 4 of his pokes have never seen the light of day, and yeah, I mean, the only one that's still alive that we know about is the same one that we've been seeing for quite a while. It's just this lead Rachi still. Leo's team looks boring and bog standard, as it usually does. Not the most exciting player to watch. He keeps it pretty damn boring and standard and copies ABR and metagame stuff and all that. And I'm not bashing him. I mean, this tournament is about winning, not about flavor. You gotta do what you gotta do. But there are certainly more exciting players, such as Anti or Georgie or H-Clat. Leo taking the time here. Out of the way he goes. He's going to risk a potential burn or para from the Rachi. Fire Punch does get off and crits, but the burn doesn't come, and that's the important part, because the burn would have been really crippling for what seems to be a physical tar. Now Flygon comes in on an Earthquake. That's a great thing to get a Flygon in on. That should scare off the T-Tower, unless the T-Tower happens to have Ice Beam. Rock Slide Earthquake. I mean, it could be last 2 moves, DD and Ice Beam. Not sure how likely that is. Probably not very, but I guess it could be. I wouldn't play around it right now if I were Odin, but maybe he will, and maybe that's him being better than me. If he's able to double back to Rachi here and the T-Tower Ice Beams, I would eat my shoe. I'd be very surprised and very impressed. But I'm greedy here. If I'm Odin, I would just be Earthquaking or subbing or Toxicking or whatever. But they're both taking a bit of time to think about it. Odin could double back, but I mean, does he have a good switch into the Skarmory? That's the obvious thing that would come in here if you're Leo. Unclear still whether or not Odin has a spinner in the back. Cloyster doesn't count, even if it had Rapid Spin. Okay, so Odin plays in a way where he's anticipating the Skarm, which is fine, because that was the obvious switch. So he goes Fire Blast. He doesn't get the Skarm, though. He gets a previously unrevealed Gar. So if there's a spinner in the back for Odin, we now know that it might not necessarily get through. Also, the Rachi here comes in on spikes and a Thunderbolt, and then gets prevented from wishing via taunt. So this is going to get a little bit awkward. Does Odin have an answer to this Gengar? A lot of the time these teams do not have a great switch into Gengar. Cloyster and Flygon are both pokes that really don't like Gengar. And honestly, that particular set of Rachi, the Fire Punch Body Slam Rachi, whether you call it Asta Rachi or Slam Rachi or even Danilo Rachi, as he calls it, whatever you know it as, it doesn't really like Gengar either. So all 3 of the pokes that have been shown by Odin are not fans of Gar. Now granted, does Odin have something like a Pursuitar in the back? That is certainly possible. Whether I would go to it here or not, I'm not sure. You can. It might be better to set it up later to have the Gengar thinking that it's cock blocking the Rachi, getting another big taunt off like he just did a moment ago, but in reality he actually taunts the Tyranitar, which is a great thing for a Pursuitar to come in on against a Gar. You could go to it here. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens, though? Gengar Thunderbolts you, or Gengar Will-O-Wisps you again? Who cares? I guess an Ice Punch freeze is the worst thing, but I mean, that's the kind of thing. You can't play around that. Gengar's going to stay in here and Ice Punch the Rachi, and it's going to also freeze the hypothetical T-Tar. At some point, you can't play around that kind of crap, and I certainly wouldn't play around that if I were Odin. Stays in, goes Fire Punch. Interesting. Maximizing his chances for hacks. Tries to get a 20% burn there. I guess it's a little bit less than 20% now because there's, of course, the chance that he simply gets paralyzed. And he plays her... Oh, God. What a devastating turn for Leo. He stays in, plays around Focus Punch, not only disrupts the fucking Focus Punch, but then he burns him, and then he gets Flygon in on Earthquake. Terrible sequence for Leo, and very good sequence for Odin. Huge turning point in this game. If Odin goes on to win this game, which I don't think is a foregone conclusion at this point, but if Odin goes on to win this game, you've got to look back at those turns that we just saw. Massive swing in Odin's favor. If on the Focus Punch turn, instead of getting cute, the T-Tar had simply gone for Earthquake, he would have done a ton of damage to the Jirachi there. Instead, he does nothing because he tried to Focus Punch and insult to injury, because who cares about disrupting the Focus Punch? The big part is he got burnt. So he misses the opportunity to get Earthquake damage, and he gets burned. Now, the Focus Punch there was trying to catch the Flygon on the way in. Obviously, if Odin goes to Flygon thinking it'll be Earthquake into Rachi, and then he actually gets hit with a Focus Punch, that's really good for Leo. So obviously it is results-based, saying this was right, this was wrong, whatever. But clearly, Odin got the overwhelmingly better end of that turn. And it's going to make it tricky for Leo to actually win. Especially now, Toxic on the Perth there on an over prediction. Odin is just outplaying the crap out of Leo here. Swampert easily could have just clicked Ice Beam there and ended the day for the Flygon. Yeah, Odin is just outplaying Leo. There have been multiple critical turns in this game where Odin has just looked like the better player. The Fire Punch, Focus Punch turn was fantastic for Odin. He follows it up by blanking the Earthquake, by going to Flygon, and then he has the balls to stay in on the Swampert to click Toxic there, of all things. Toxic isn't even that good there. Toxic into Blissey, who cares? Toxic into Gengar, who cares? Toxic into Skarmory, who cares? He specifically knew somehow that the Swampert was going to stay in because Toxic into T-Tar is also who cares because it's burnt. So he specifically knew somehow that he was going to stay in with Swampert, and that he wasn't going to click Ice Beam. Odin's playing out of his fucking mind. He really deserves to win this. I'm still not clear if he's going to or not, but the way that he's playing, he really deserves to. This is the best Odin I've seen in quite some time. And I think he's got a really good chance, too. The Skarm is burnt. The Tar is burnt. Blissey's not a win condition. Maybe Gengar can get the job done, especially if Odin really truly doesn't have a spinner in the back, which is looking more and more likely that he doesn't have one at this point. But I mean, the Pert is toxic too. Just the whole team is so messed up with status. Burn, poison. Yeah, Odin looks great. This is the best I've seen Odin in quite a while. This is the 6-win SPL Odin from a couple years ago. And he's using more variety in his teams, too. Really impressed. Has absolutely outplayed Leo in this Game 3 and deserves to win. Not a foregone conclusion that he will, but Odin is definitely ahead right now, is likely to win, and 100% deserves to win. Very impressed. Now, Gengar is the best bet for Leo here. And with that stupid visual glitch, Gengar comes in twice, which is going to unfortunately erase all the moves. Oh no, is that part fixed at least? Alright, at least we get to see what things have used. But yeah, we get that visual glitch where Gengar switches in twice. Gengar is going to be the best bet for Leo. If there's one way that Leo wins this game, it's going to be on the back of the Gengar. That is the one critique. As well as I think Odin is playing, and as much as he deserves this, he is rolling up with a team that is very vulnerable to Gengar, but his Jirachi fucking loves him. That is the third Fire Punch burn that the Rachi has gifted to him, and that is such a big deal. Gengar was by far the best win condition for Leo, and through Para, he gets a burn. That's the second time this game that he's gotten a burn through Para, and the third time that he's gotten a 20% burn. And that is the concession Leo is going to pack it up, and Odin is going to get there. Certainly a bit of luck with the burn as a whole, the 3 burns, but man, Odin played that really, really well. His team was a bit vulnerable to Gengar for my taste, so I didn't necessarily love this particular team as much as I liked the other 2, but I didn't hate it either, and he played it very, very well and deserves to win. It's very tough to beat a player who is simultaneously playing well and getting lucky, and that's what we see here. The burns were luck, not skill. There's no doubt about that. But he not only played very well, but he caught breaks as well, and that's very difficult to get past. So Odin is going to take out Leo here, and he's going to advance. I'm about to spoil the other match if you guys don't already know, so this is the right time to pause the video and leave me a thumbs up and all that good stuff. Ready? Jimothy Cool defeated Mead. If you guys haven't watched that, you should. And therefore, the setup for the next match is going to be CyberOdin next round against Jimothy Cool in the semifinals, one of the semifinals of this bracket. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thumbs up if you did. That's going to be all for my narrating, I believe, in this particular round of play-ins. But we've got matches coming that are going to be narrated by Dexa, Zokru, and Coltior, so you guys can look forward to those. As always, I appreciate you watching. Leave a thumbs up if you have enjoyed the content. And it's time for me to do things other than Pokemon with my day off. I'll see you guys soon.